Today I'm going to talk about a pedal that I've used a lot. It's one of my staple pedals. It's always on my pedal board. It's a lot of fun. It's the Boss Digital Delay DD3. This is kind of an old pedal for me. I've had it probably 10, 12 years, so there may be upgraded versions, but you can still get these on the market. It's a very simple delay pedal. It's a very small little box. It's not super big. It's not going to take up a lot of space on your pedal board. And there are 4 controls on there: level, feedback, delay time, and mode. The delay time and the mode are kind of related. The level just mixes the dry signal, the undelayed signal, with the delayed signal. So when you have the delay effect on, how much of that delayed effect is coming through, balanced with the dry signals. Feedback is going to control how many times the delay loop comes back. So with a very low feedback, it's just going to echo once, maybe twice, and then you're done. With a very high feedback, it's going to come back a lot. When you have the feedback all the way to the right, it's going to just be a straight line. It's going to just come back in a straight line, which can be a cool effect. You can just overwhelm and just gets. And if you have the feedback and the level up really high, you can just hit this note and it just overwhelms everything, which can be a pretty cool effect. The delay time will indicate how long will elapse before the note will rebound back to you. And the mode is kind of like setting brackets of delay time: short, medium, and long. And within the short, medium, and long, you can control that delay time. You can fine tune it, essentially, is what's happening there. And there's also a hold setting on the mode switch, and the hold is, it's going to echo if you hold the pedal down. It's going to echo just for that moment. And I'd love to hear people who've used that and gotten some good effects out of it, because personally it hasn't been a massive part of my arsenal. I haven't really used the hold, but it's pretty cool. I've used this in a lot of songs on a lot of different settings. So the short setting, it has a kind of a slap back effect, and it's a particularly distinctive sound. So it's a very quick echo. It's kind of more reverby than echoey. It's very steel and metallic, and it's kind of cool, and with a little distortion. I use this in particular on a song called Motherload on one of the Listeners albums, the second album by the Listeners, called Fix. I use it on the song Motherload, and I use it all over that album. It was a signature sound for me at the time. It just had this closeness, this urgency to it, this kind of sharp slap back. So really cool sound. When I'm using these settings, I was often using it with the mix at 1 o'clock and then set 11 o'clock to the feedback and the delay. So not super heavy on the effects, not all the way to the right, so just kind of almost halfway, and that seemed to be comfortable for me. The medium setting, I use this also on that same album in a song called 2 More Hours. It still has a sort of a slap back, but there's a little bit more distance between it, so a little bit more bubbly. Definitely cool slapback effect, and with a little distortion. It has this really sweet kind of sharpness to it that I really loved. nice effect. It's not just delaying back, it's doing something, for me, it does something to the sound. It gives us this really metallic feel, which is quite distinctive. And other delays I've used, they don't quite have the same feel to me. And then on the long setting, then you've actually got a more distinguishable distance between the note that you play and the note coming back. And I use this also on that same album. I think the song was Only One Way Out. Probably had the feedback a little lower so that it wouldn't intrude as much on the chords, but pretty cool effects. Now you can play, as I said, with the delay time when you're in these modes and get a little more variation. It's more noticeable on the long setting, to be honest, so let's turn the delay time up a little bit. And you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. It's going to bounce back a lot slower. Have a lot of fun with that all the way out. So I'm sure other delay pedals have similar beautiful tones to them, but this is the one that I've relied on for the longest time. It was recommended to me when I joined the band, Oh Halo, and I was the lead guitarist for that band. The guy that was on guitar at the time was moving to focus more on bass. He said to me, you should get one of these pedals, and he told me some of the settings to use on it. So I fell in love with the pedals. One of the first pedals I got, I just watched a recent video of myself and the listeners. And in the video you can see I've got my guitar, the amp, and I have my vintage Rat distortion pedal, and that's it. That's the only pedal I have. Whereas now I've got two pedal boards full of pedals, and stuff doesn't even fit on those pedal boards. So the delay and the chorus were kind of the start of the evolution of my palette. What I love about this particular pedal is, as I said, it doesn't just echo the note back to you, but it does something to the sound. It does a particular texture. It makes it sound a certain way, which has a certain feel to it, so it's quite beautiful. One of the other cool uses of the delay is if you're using the EBow, which is a really beautiful resonant sound with a little distortion, the echo really helps round that out and just give it, make it sit in the mix and give it a little space around it and kind of highlight it. So a little echo around your EBow really does something sweet to the sound, and I use that effect on the song Tonight, and I think it works really well. So whenever I have the EBow, I always try to have some kind of either some really heavy reverb in there or go with the delay pedal. I've been to an Oh Halo gig, and I loved that band when I was first seeing them in New York. I just loved their sound. They reminded me of Love Spirals Downwards and other bands like that. There was no one else around doing that sound to my mind, and I was inspired after a gig, and I went home and wrote this riff for the song Dream Lucy, which appeared on the album Ghosts Can't Be Buried, and I made it very echo heavy. when we recorded it, the producer, my friend Charlie, was obviously pretty smart about like the more delay and echo you're going to put in the mix, the more it's going to crowd out. So we definitely reduced the echo, but you can still hear the touch of it. Rolling the echo off quite a bit, so it's more of a faint ghost, just gives you this beautiful sound, so it sits better in the mix, and you can definitely hear that in that song Dream Lucy. If you want to crowd out the mix and get a little crazy, you can do that too. On that song, 2 More Hours, when I hit the solo, I like to have a lot of delay on there. So I like to have a lot of cascade, so I would just do a lot of hammer offs and slides and just get roughly into the scale and just bring single notes around the scale and get a little crazy, just have them cascade back to me in the middle, because it captured the intensity of the emotion and the frustration and the release of that song when it hit that chorus. So that's another really cool example for me of how this pedal has come into play and been instrumental in some of these songs. Than not, I'm just using a touch of it, and I'm using it on definitely the advice of Charlie when we record, who knows the right kind of balance to get there. And less is more with this. Sometimes you can go a little crazy, but for recording and a lot of instrumentation and layers, less is more. So on the song Double Helix, which is on a forthcoming album called The Slow Death of the Lovemyth, which will be coming up either this year or early next year, you can hear on some of the solos there's definitely a touch of the echo in there, but it's minimal, and it does add to the sound, and it really brings the texture out. Things you can do with the pedal is when you're messing around with the feedback and the delay times, it does this really strange kind of thing, which can be a cool effect in and of itself. So that's kind of a nice little side effect. I've used that at gigs sometimes when the band is playing around me and there's a lot of noise happening there. We want to get to some kind of frenetic intensity. You can bring that in, maybe have a looper pedal bringing a loop back into you and play with it there and just add that little otherworldly touch, which is kind of cool. The other thing that I like to do is if you do have the feedback and the level all the way up, keep coming back. And if you have the feedback and the level all the way up, as it comes back, it gets slightly more intense when it starts to take over. If you do that, that's the long setting. If you do it the short setting, it'll quickly overwhelm. Now that's a pretty cool effect to just stab in the middle of something when you're playing. So that's a quick demo of why I love this pedal. It has a beautiful texture, a beautiful sound, sort of metallic element that it brings in, a sort of a luminous, neon blue-green resonance around the note, not just echoing it back to you. It has a really good way to control whether you want a quick slap back or you want that note to take a little bit longer to come back. You can control whether it's just going to be a ghostly echo or whether it's going to be riding alongside you, a fairly insistent echo, and you can do a pretty good balance of the mix. And you've got these other side effect notes that you can bring in, the sort of weird sliding pitches when you're adjusting in real time, and that overwhelming infinite feedback that can just overwhelm. So it does a lot. It's inexpensive, small, easy to use. This is not like some pedals that just take a little while to figure out. You can quickly get cool sounds out of this, so I'm surprised it's taken me this long to kind of get to talking about it on the channel. It's maybe one of the last pedals currently on my board I haven't talked about. Not only do I continue to use it to this day, but I've used it extensively in my recording, so you'll hear this showing up all over the place, from recordings from 12, 13, 14 years ago all the way up to stuff that hasn't yet come out. That's a DD3. If you're looking for a delay pedal, this is definitely something you should check out. If you have other delay pedals that you've used and you should recommend, I'm always interested to try out new stuff, so definitely give me your recommendations. That's what I got for this week. That's what I wanted to talk about today. Have a little fun with this pedal. And if you like what you see on the channel, as always, do hit the like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell icon so that you're notified when I post new content. And I'll see you all again in the next video.
Lucy wants a dream. She wants to be asleep again. It was so